Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am beyond excited to have the Mr. Toby Thompkins on the Right Now show. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm good. Welcome. Thank you. I'm here in New York City, and it's actually a beautiful day. So,
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for joining me today. Again,
Sure.
If you're joining us live or you watch this back at a later date, this show is a very simple one. Let me actually put a caveat in first before I ask you the golden question, Toby. So I saw Toby in some brilliant regenerative conversations. I met you actually through Clubhouse several weeks ago, listening to one of those conversations.
Yeah.
So this for me is that really great example of how different platforms can actually help you sort of find each other almost in a way. It's really cool.
It's an exponential impact in terms of reaching people who you would never know were out there. It's happened to me a number of times, done directly from Clubhouse and some other places. I love it.
That's so cool. So cool. Well, look, people will get to learn a bit more about you over the next 25, 30 minutes, Toby. But right now, like this exploratory conversation, no scripting, no planning. What's on your heart and mind right here, right now, in this moment?
Oh. You want my heart or my mind or both?
It's your space.
That's a great question. I want to start with what's on my heart, because I think that that's the most important thing. And I think that what's on my heart, so my background is I do leadership development, change management. I work in a lot of really interesting and cool spaces with all different kinds of leaders, from traditional leaders in local communities in Africa to CEOs to philanthropic leaders to startup entrepreneurs like myself. And what's on my mind, what's on my heart right now is, are we doing enough that we can do to help people turn this pandemic into an opportunity for personal and collective transformation? It's a huge thing. I mean, I've had, I have a dear friend who, in addition to the pandemic, was in a nearly fatal automobile accident in New York. He was riding his bike home from work and was hit head on by an Uber driver car. This happened 2 months ago. And fortunately, he's, now in recovery. But one of the things that was so interesting is how that incident, that crisis, which is what the pandemic has been for a lot of people, has caused him to rethink everything. What kind of work he's doing, whether he wants to continue to live out his life in New York, what really matters. And I think that we need to do more. We need to create tools and resources and conversations that invite people into that conversation, because I've lost people due to COVID. I've watched people lose their homes and their apartments through this pandemic. I've watched relationships break up. I've watched people question everything because the company that they've worked for so many years didn't make it, and all of the hard work that they put into it is now. So, and there doesn't seem to be sort of, a well thought out space for folks to use this moment, use this fear, use this loss as a place to kind of wipe the slate clean and step into a new possibility, a new preferred future for yourself. So that's what's on my heart. That's really, really on my heart. And, my goddaughter called me yesterday, and she's in Puerto Rico, and she went to Puerto Rico. She's a very talented artist, but she's also like a blossoming activist. And so she decided to go to Puerto Rico and be a part of, saving indigenous culture. Her heritage is Puerto Rican, et cetera, et cetera. And so she calls me yesterday and she's like, I've been pursuing this justice thing for 2 years. I've been here trying to make things better. And I realize that everybody doesn't want things to be better, and it's not always the people who we think are the bad guys. And I said to her, I said, I won't call her name. I said, what I learned, I said, because I used to pursue justice, is that the most just thing you can do is to pursue joy. To literally be in the pursuit of joy and show people how you do that and how that's working for you. Because ultimately, the goal of justice is joy. But, even if justice isn't served, you can still choose joy. And I said, what would that look like for you? This is my goddaughter. I adore her. She's a very talented artist. I want her to create, not fix. And she's been involved in fixing things that she didn't break. And I want her to create things that only live within her. And she can't do that from a platform of pursuing justice, but she can from the platform of pursuing joy. And so that's what to ask that question, like at the heart level, that's what I think is really on my heart right now. Yeah.
Wow. It's so powerful. So there's so many places we can go with this, Toby. And I want to start with your amazing goddaughter, actually, because I work in the chemical industry. So I'm like uber capitalist. Like I'm the person that everyone in sustainability wants to put on the top of a fork. If you look at the stereotype,
we talked about this, right?
At the end of the day, I am, the white male Western capitalist. Like that's the space I operate within. However, what's been really interesting for me the last 12 months in particular, again, linked to the pandemic, but also separately, has been this, and I'm getting a sense that's also what you're inviting your goddaughter to step into, is this: what can you influence from your sphere? So instead of getting attached to this huge thing outside of you, which you can impact, but through your sphere of influence, not by attacking the whole out there. And I found myself getting so ripped into millions of different parts because I was like, I'm not doing enough. White shame. Why haven't I done enough of this after George Floyd? Like, you can rip yourself in a million pieces. And what I forgot, Toby, is exactly what you're pointing to. What can I do within my sphere? Be playful with it, but be intentional and try and make a difference within my sphere.
Yeah. Because if you can do that, if you can invite other people into that space, and as many different kinds of people as you can touch into that space, then you've just taken your energy away from the things that are broken. We spend most of our life fixing. And I know, as a consultant and as an executive coach and as a Black man in America, my job, in order to be, respected and not feared and all those things, has been to be a fixer. But it doesn't serve me. You know what I mean? Because I'm fixing other people's problems. I'm not going after the things, like, I'm not broken. So I need to focus on the things that create joy for myself and for others, and it took me many years, many trips around the sun to finally realize that, so I get it. I mean, you talk about, we talked about this before, the whole capitalist thing. Look, if you have a checking account, if you have a savings account, if you have a debit card or a credit card, you're a capitalist. If you live in a cash economy, you are interested in the movement of currency, in the exchange of currency for value and service. And you're participating in one of two ways. You're either a producer of labor, a product of labor, and you're a unit of consumerism. So you have already decided to be a capitalist. The question is, what is the consciousness that you hold around that? And I actually am in the process of pivoting the work that I've been doing to focus on that whole question of conscious capitalism. Like, how do you help a conscious investor, for example, go from being the conscious investor to an agent of change? How do you use your investments? How do you use your consumerism? How do you use the decisions that you make in every area of your life to hold space for the kinds of things and the ways in which you want to see the world be different? That's how, and if you're doing that, then those other labels, they don't apply. They don't apply.
It's so interesting for me, this, because there's a lot of talk at the moment, about the Great Resignation, exactly where you started. You know, everyone's had this forced period of reflection, present. Yes, it's impacted us all differently depending on our socioeconomic group, color of skin, whole range of different things. But we have all had that forced pause.
And people are leaving their jobs because of it.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing in you, though, Toby, which is really exciting. So there's this great resignation, which is a very real thing that seems to be emerging. But what I hear from you today is the great invitation.
It is. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to be really careful, because when people say I'm no longer going to participate and I'm going to go out and create something new, or something that works for me, or that's something that helps me build the future that you're not going to build for me, they're not radicals. They're not anarchists. They're not, they're just they're showing you another possibility. And that's all. And, it's like, I'm a big fan of the whole crypto space, and I invest in it, and I believe in it. And it's come under a lot of fire, because it seems it's believed by some to be the home for people who have an alternative agenda. And like, we're humans. We basically all want the same thing. Like dogs, my dog and every dog I've met wants a belly rub, a bone, you know what I mean? Food to be fed on demand, and a treat, right? I mean, they want the same things. And I think humans basically want the same things as well. But how they go about getting it has to be about, sort of free choice and capacity and equity and all of the things that we struggle with. We all ought to have the opportunity to pursue that journey. So I agree with you. I mean, I think we're going to be having conversations like this as we go, because there are more pandemics in front of us, many more. Whether we want to acknowledge it or not, this is the beginning of, as many people would argue, a real period, a real arch of change from what we know now to what we don't know the future to be. And I think that, how you step on that journey is really going to determine what the journey will be like, and what your ultimate destination where you will arrive. Yeah.
It's so fascinating. I'm wondering how this pops up in your work as well, Toby, because what I'm getting a sense of, again, as I work in the chemical industry, which touches every part of our lives, as we know, goes into everything. You can't get away from it. Again, it's super embedded. But there's been some real green shoots, and I use that language deliberately because I work within the chemical industry, but I'm seeing what I feel in my body is a genuine, for the first time, sort of journey towards, actually, this green thing, it isn't just about license to trade. It's not just about staying open. Oh my God, what you mean there is a very real risk that my grandkids may have struggled to access healthy food and running water in 50 years.
Yeah.
Well, we're part of that as an industry. Well, yeah, we knew it in 1982 with Exxon. We just chose to put it under the carpet. So there's I just love that word consciousness you use, because I think there's a very real shift coming, Toby. If you can feel it.
Oh yeah, you absolutely can. And we focus on green as if it's the only problem to be solved, but the green speaks for E in the equation of ESG, which is the framework that's used by institutional investors and social impact investors. And I think it was something like $47 trillion in 2020 of just in the U.S. were organized under social impact investments. So that represented like 1/3 of the assets under management in 2020. In the pandemic year, people were more focused on ESG than ever before, which should say something, And but we also have to focus on the social part, right? Because we don't just have to think about what's going on in our family neighborhoods. We have to think about what's going on for our digital lives, because our lives, for whether you like it or not, became incredibly digital and virtual. And so now things that we didn't think about in the sort of physical world, like privacy, right? Because if I want privacy, I close my door, or I lock it, or I pull my curtains down, and now I have privacy. That's not real. And there is no such thing really as privacy in the virtual world. And so there are new, so we have to focus on the social piece. We have to focus on governance. There are people who say great things and don't do great things, say great words and don't do great things. and we've got to figure out how to not just catch people when they're doing something wrong, but recognize and celebrate and share the wisdom of people who are doing things right. That's how you solve, for that, and we seem to only focus on the negative narrative and not the positive narrative.
It's really cool, this actually, Toby, because what you got me thinking about is this, and again, it comes back to this, just love how this joins up, which it would do. The focus on joy, the focus on understanding almost the system part. It's about social justice, it's about climate, it's about everything. And we've been brought up in very innocently, or maybe by intention. You've got a few more times around the sun than me, but we can definitely see through the education system that we've been put down this narrow path, which we didn't realize was actually separation from nature, separation from other people. So I didn't realize until a few years ago that, oh my God, I've actually been socialized to go from this whole person as a baby to being a million different fragments, all of which can be manipulated.
Yeah, and the denaturing thing is huge and not something that we spend enough time. I mean, the one concern that I have about technology, in terms of how it has altered the human experience, is that it has denatured, now a whole generation of digital natives who don't know the difference between a forest and a park. They think a forest is a park. They think a park is as close to a forest, and they're nothing alike. You know what I mean? They will never understand what wilderness is, because they don't, and they don't know the feeling of leaving a concrete built environment and stepping into nature, like literally what that does to your senses. I live in Harlem when I'm here. I live in Portugal, and I live in Harlem, and when I'm in Portugal, I lose weight without trying. I mean, and there are a lot of variables for that, right? But a lot of it has to do with the energy that's running through my body when I'm standing on sand and grass and in the mountains versus the energy that's running through my body when I stand on a concrete island called Manhattan, which has layers and layers and layers of technology beneath me, beside me, and above me. Like, and you don't even, because it's your normal, you don't get how abnormal it really is, And then we want to see these, understand what are people doing in blue zones that we're not doing everywhere. Well, they're keeping their zones blue. Like, what if we had a blue planet? That would be nice, right? We used to.
I think it's really, really interesting, this point, actually, because one of the things that I've experienced personally over the last 12 months, I never used to do walk and talks. Toby, back to your point about nature. So we've got beautiful parks within half a kilometer of where I live, very, very gratefully. I now take 50%, 50% of any of my calls intentionally. I'll say, hey, do you mind waiting, customer or supplier or colleague? I'm just going to put my earphones in and we'll have a chat as I walk.
Right.
That would not have been deemed professional 12 months ago in my environment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I do a standing 6-mile walk Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in Central Park with a friend of mine at 9:15 every morning. And it is hard to schedule that into my calendar. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's really hard. That's Monday morning at 9:15 and Wednesday and Friday. And you think, that's prime time. I should be billing during those hours. But doing it has made such I'm only talking the past 6 weeks I've been doing this.
Okay.
Just the past 6 weeks. And, I feel the difference. I feel the difference. And there's been no consequence in my schedule whatsoever. I'm just booked. That's all. So,
that's really interesting. And I'm really curious, were there any stories that you had before actually blocking that out, or such as, there's a risk to my billing if I don't, if I take that time out for myself, there's a risk I'm going to lose so many $100s? Or did you have to work through any of that stuff in order to get that into your diary?
I have to keep Mondays open and available because you never know when some crisis might happen. I might get a client or a coaching call or something like that. That was it. So I had to hold it open for chaos and not, I had to hold it open to pursue justice and not joy, so to speak. But yeah, and I mean, I'm not in a life or death business, right? I'm not, I'm not doing triage in the emergency room. So someone calls me, guess what? it can work. We can meet before 9 and we can meet after 10:30. It usually is okay. So, but we don't make that shift in our heads. You know what I mean? We don't.
It's brilliant. I really appreciate you sharing that, because it is that, because what shifted was literally that belief, that thought. Like, it was a moment, and this is the thing as well. I invite anyone joining us now or watching this back, Toby, and this has been a hard learning for me the last 3 years. Those attachments, those beliefs, like they can literally be gone in the moment.
Oh, and let me be clear. It wasn't my idea. It was my friend Tony, who it was her idea, and she, in a very gentle and non-judgmental way, said, "Well, you let me know what works for you." That's her big thing, and so we did it. I loved it, and I couldn't, I knew that Wednesday we had to do it again, and Friday we had to do it again, and then the next thing you knew, we were through a week. So, sometimes you have to find that other person who kind of recognizes and believes that you deserve more and is willing to walk with you on that journey.
That's beautiful. And I love linking it back to where you started. It's almost like she saw you deserve more joy. So let me help you create that space for you, Toby, which is beautiful.
Yeah. And we can all do that. We can do that. That's free. We can do that. Yeah.
That is so good. Tell us a little bit about you and SAFIOO. Is that how you pronounce it?
SAFIOO, yeah.
SAFIOO. So tell us a bit about the business and the work you do.
SAFIOO is a leadership development platform. It's in beta right now. And the idea is that it provides a platform for leaders, entrepreneurs, creatives, as well as executives and corporations to crowdsource wisdom through their network and the larger network of the platform to help them solve real-time professional, personal, and business challenges. And so that's how it works. So you basically get on the platform, you present a challenge that you're having. It could be, I'm dating a guy who's divorced and is a primary, responsible for his children, and I've never dated a guy with children before, and here's what I'm facing. And then that goes out to people who you may know and people who you don't know, but who've shared a similar experience. And through audio or video, they share their story, because stories are more powerful than data. You will forget the percentage, the number, the date. You will never forget the story that someone told you. So we want to use that as a resource. And that story is either in an audio or video podcast format. And so then you vote up on it, whether the story was helpful in your leadership decision-making journey. And then that person gets rewarded with, platform rewards. So that's how the platform works. And, we're fundraising now for it and all of that. The company's based in Portugal, and we want to, and so that's that work. And then the other part of SAFIOO is my leadership development work that I do with companies and my colleagues, my team, and we do really, hands-on change development, coaching, advising, that sort of work as well. So yeah.
So cool. Very grateful that we have Sarah Beth joined us. Who said stories matter.
Oh boy, do they.
Amazing. So Sarah Beth's an amazing human like yourself, Toby, who does a lot of work around workplace hybridity, how we're the whole, you'd love it actually, intersectionality. How do we leverage those different intersection points of our wholeness, which is really cool. So thanks for joining us, Sarah Beth. As we go into our last 5 minutes, Toby, I would love to, I can't get your crypto comment out of my head. So I'm someone that is pretty pro-risk, but I've stayed well away from the crypto thing. I'm like, this is well above my head. Like, I just got no idea what's going on. So is it the decentralized technology that you're most excited about, or is it actually the currency in and of itself, or is it a bit of both?
It's the new possibilities that a decentralized world presents. So basically what's happening in crypto right now is that crypto is at the beginning. And the beginning of anything, that is designed for everyone is always exciting, and it's always high risk. But
Yeah.
crypto has the responsibility of building an infrastructure based on the lessons and mistakes of the past, and doing it in a whole new world, this digital, decentralized world, which means that a lot of the questions and the challenges and the barriers that we have in what we, in the sort of centralized, autonomous, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not autonomous. It's
Automated architecture.
yeah, the architecture of a
Hmm.
physical world with cash. A lot of that just doesn't exist. Now,
Hmm.
a lot of people who are devout crypto people think that the proof is that, if a centralized world is bad, then a decentralized world is good. That's utopia. I'm not there yet. I still think that the only thing that's the same in both worlds is us. And if we figured out a way to gain control and advantage and monopolize in a physical hierarchical world, we will figure that out in a decentralized world as well. So part of what I'm doing with the company is working with capitalists. This kind of brings us full circle, who are conscious, to help them figure out how to create within this growing crypto decentralized world, one that is really about social impact. So how do you, through your consumerism, through your investments, and through your activism, step into a decentralized world, which I do believe is the future, but build in the world there that we were trying to fix in the other world. You know what I mean?
That's super cool. Now, where I'm really excited about this, so blockchain in of itself as a technology, I've got a little bit of understanding of. I didn't really fully follow like the crypto value add. So thank you for explaining that.
Sure.
In the pharmaceutical, so I work within the pharmaceutical sphere. They've done some really clever technology. There's some companies where they're now tracking blood. So you've got very specific blood types that can potentially save someone's life. But that can get sometimes intercepted by pirates, or it might just get lost. But blockchain allows you to have that full chain in a really quick, efficient way. And so there's just so many different ways that this technology can actually accelerate and cut. Let's be honest, just cut the multiple middle people out that just don't need to be there.
and that creates not only more efficiency but greater capacity.
Yes.
So that's what I like about a decentralized reality, and so it means that also there's the question of transparency is a big part of the decentralized space. Blockchain means that every move you make is tracked and it's validated, and for some people that feels like a loss of liberty. For others, it feels like no. Actually, it ensures and protects liberty. So my interest isn't in deciding which one it is. My interest is in doing what works. What's actually going to create what, in terms of a possibility in the lives of the largest amount of people, what seemed to be like an impossibility in the centralized world. And remember, blockchain was created in response to the 2007 financial crash, which was a failure of, the way things were. And I think that's the biggest lesson that we have to lead with moving forward, is that we live in a time now where if you don't get it right, we're going to create something that makes you irrelevant. And that is really, really, really a compelling possibility. That is not the way we grew up, So now people do have an opportunity to pursue something that's better, that seems impossible in one world and not in another. Yeah.
And I find that really exciting. I'm grinning like a Cheshire cat because, on the one side, it depends how you look at the world, of course, but I think from a progress point of view, that's transformational in and of itself, isn't it? The fact you look at the last decade and go, blockchain wasn't barely a thing. And you're now talking about literal, like, societal remodeling, potentially off the back of it. That's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there are going to be mistakes, and there will be bad people and good people, but it's a lot easier to be good in a decentralized world, I believe, than it is to be bad. And that's what I want to be a part of, whatever bad means. I think that's exciting. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Well, this time went by fast.
Do you know, it's terrifying, isn't it? Like you literally start with one question, you go all over the houses, and you come back to half an hour. You're a star, honestly. I so appreciate your insights,
thank
Toby.
you for inviting me, Gary. This is great.
It's really, really cool. Let me just pop up your details again at the bottom. So please do check out Toby's website. You can find him on LinkedIn, but do go and check out his content as well. Like I say, one of the things I love most about you, Toby, and I've only known you a short while, is you almost role model the blockchain world. Like you're transparent, you're open, you're vulnerable, you're prepared to talk to anybody. So just thank you so much for role modeling that humanity. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Take care, everybody, and